So if you do carnivore for 90 days, you're going to feel amazing. And at the end of that 90 days, you're not going to go back to another way of eating because you've never experienced how good this feels ever.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited tonight because I get to be with my favorite carnivore person, Dave Mack. He was the first person actually I've reached out to with a big cry for help, and there he came. So Dave, I'm so happy to have you here um, on my podcast and the No Carb Life. That's the name of your station. And I just want to ask anyone who's listening along the way here if you can hit the like button and subscribe so we can get information out to as many people as possible, especially on such exciting information as the carnivore path. And Dave, I would like to start by I I've never really heard your story, at length like this, but I'd like to know what influenced you to start this journey with the carnivore diet.
Well, first, Judy, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you having me. Um, my journey really started 24 years ago. And that journey started with introduction to low carb dieting through Atkins. Um, and although I didn't do it for very long. It was only maybe 4 months when I first tried Atkins. When I did do it, I realized that cutting the carbs out of my diet really gave me, um, it just changed everything about the way I was living. It just made me feel better than I'd ever felt before. And so I'd carried that with me all my life. And fast forward to when I was 48 years old, and I was sick, I was fat, I was feeling lethargic all the time. I I was an alcoholic, um, and I went to the doctor for a regular checkup, and the doctor had a talk with me, and he said, "We've got some problems we need to address, and these are that you need to cut out the alcohol or significantly reduce it." And spoiler alert, I knew it was a problem, but and you also need to cut down on the sugar because you're pre-diabetic. And he, the state I was in at the time, he wanted to prioritize getting off the alcohol, and he wanted to give me a drug that would stop me drinking alcohol completely. And that drug's called antabuse.
Hmm.
And basically, when you take the drug, it doesn't do anything. But if you drink alcohol after taking the drug, you get violently ill, possibly die. And I didn't like those side effects. So I said to the doctor, I don't really like this. I don't really like medications at all. Give me a few weeks to try and address this on my own. And so one thing I'd learned when I went Atkins all those years ago was that when I cut out carbs, I would have a lot more self-control.
Mm.
And so I thought to myself, I could kill two birds with one stone here. I could get off the sugar, and I could also potentially stop drinking alcohol if I just go back to an Atkins way of eating.
Okay.
And so that's what I did. And surprisingly, Atkins, in combination with kind of changing my habits around a little bit, stop reminding me of the alcohol day to day. I was able to both get off alcohol and sugar. And I it was great, but I did have some issues with the vegetables that I'd introduced to you know as part of my Atkins diet. Although it wasn't much, it was I well to take a step back, I didn't realize it was the vegetables at first. I was having some gastric problems,
Mm.
diarrhea, and it's not that's never pleasant for anyone, right? So I wanted to work out what was wrong. And I thought, okay, well, I've changed my diet so significantly. Maybe my body doesn't like this new diet. But I started doing some research, and I found that the vegetables that I was eating were vegetables that were particular irritants, like gastric irritants. And so I decided, okay, well, I'll just cut these vegetables out and see how I go. So I cut the vegetables out, and lo and behold, the bathroom issues stopped, and I've been carnivore ever since.
Wow. So the change from Atkins to carnivore primarily is just exclusive meat.
That's right.
That's the
Uh,
main difference.
yeah, it's just cutting out the vegetables.
So what significant effects, with that you've had beyond even the intestines, starting all that inflammation to heal up? Are there any other health benefits or mental benefits, or it's because you're stellar on this. I mean, you're known worldwide. You're just real solid, and you bring on such a variety of people and issues on your podcast. So you're very dedicated to this, and there's got to be more even that you're experiencing then.
Oh, definitely. So I mean, to start with one of the major ones, I had a stroke when I was 17,
Mm,
and it was a hemorrhagic stroke, and what that left me with some palsy on my right hand side.
mm,
And so for that, this was 30 odd years ago, and still I have a limp. Still, I have, one eye is more droopy than the other, that kind of thing. Um, since going carnivore, my limp has started to improve, and strength has started to come back in my right side.
mm,
Um, and I don't think it'll ever be, quote unquote healed, but just over time, the limp continues to improve, the strength continues to get better. I and I mean that's just life changing for me because before I would be constantly tripping over because my I'm limping and my right foot's lazier. And it's just embarrassing, especially as someone who used to teach public speaking. I'd be walking out on stage and I'd trip over or something, and so um, the that's been a major thing. And just the other day, I met someone that I haven't seen for about 2 years, about almost the same amount of time I've been doing carnivore. And she said to me, "You're hardly limping anymore."
mm.
So there's that's probably the biggest improvement I've seen. Um, Additionally, I used to have arthritis in my left knee,
Mhm.
and that's completely gone.
Mm.
So you can imagine what it was like before. I had arthritis in my left knee. I was limping with my right leg. Walking down the street, I looked like, it's just some kind of clown walking down the street. Um, and all that's gone.
That is so
And
huge, Dave. You know, to get that sense of balance back, how it's affecting your nervous system, your muscles. I mean, that is just, I know there are people going to be listening to this video have a hard time believing that until you actually can experience carnivore working in your body. And what I mean, and what I want to ask you that too, specifically what you are eating. But until you really live and go through these experiences, it's really hard to believe it. And with
right,
what you're saying, you're not taking a pill, you're not taking a certain prescription or supplement. You know, it could be from so many things, but when you said when you stopped certain vegetables and then completely stopped vegetables, do you think that was significant to the results you're getting now even more?
I possibly,
Okay.
because the carbohydrate becoming sugar in your body, I mean, that causes inflammation.
Hmm.
So there's possibly something about that. And potentially prior to that, just the processed food I was eating, which was a lot, that was causing inflammation as well. But as far as certainly on the stroke side, I have spoken to um, doctors about this, and they think that what is probably happening is the myelin sheath is repairing, so the signals are getting better or getting through better
Hmm.
from my brain to yeah.
What inspires you to keep interviewing and doing as much as you're doing and connecting people worldwide and sharing what you're doing? What moves you and inspires you to keep doing this?
Well, this started off as me just being. Um, I started my channel because I was angry.
Ah.
So once, what happens is a lot of people start their YouTube channel. A lot of carnivore people start their YouTube channel kind of around the same time that they start carnivore. And
Mm.
they do that as a way of keeping themselves accountable and, putting updates they can look back on and go, wow, look how different I looked. My situation was a little bit different.
Okay.
I didn't start my channel until 4 months into carnivore. And I started it because I was angry that I was starting to wake up and realize that we're just being lied to about food.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just being lied to about, it's got to be balanced. You've got to eat the rainbow, do this, do this, do this. And that's how eat less, move more. That's how you stay healthy. And I was just starting to feel like I'm on the verge of getting into my 50s, and I've believed all this garbage all my life, and it's got me nowhere. And 4 months after changing the way I eat, everything's better. And so I started my channel as a way of just kind of, okay, I'll get the message out there, thinking maybe I might be able to get to 5, 10 people that might watch some videos. And then, you know, some of the videos just started to take off.
Mm-hmm.
And now I still have that feeling like I need to get the message out there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons I keep going. But the other reason is kind of selfish, and that's that I just enjoy talking to people about this and hearing their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that other people do too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're definitely part of bringing a huge community together and people who really do care about their quality of life, people who are tired of living in pain. And and I understand what you're talking about. It's real shocking when you start to learn what is behind the food industry. what is behind other pharmaceutical industries. You know, it's it's really, it reminds me of years ago when one of my children got a particular immunization when she was a baby and became deathly ill. I had to study this. What in the world would make a child that ill? What is going on in this? And and we're waking up. Don't you find more and more people are waking up to, why these toxins have built up so much in the body,
Mm.
almost as if it was planned that way, or that's just kind of part of the cycle. And when you break out of the cycle, as you see so many people doing this, there's a new sense of, yeah, you have a lot of different emotions going on, but there's a new sense of owning your own mind and body
Mm.
and freedom. It's like getting part of your power back. At least that's what this is for me. It's on a even broader level and deeper level than I thought I had experienced before.
Yeah. I think it gives you this new autonomy that you've
Mm,
never experienced before. And you can finally understand how your body's reacting to things. And it's like, oh, so I can actually control how my body's reacting. All these years I've never been able to do it. I've just assumed that I was big boned or it was genetic or I was doomed to be this way. And it's not actually like that. You're in control. It's just you had the wrong information the whole time.
that is so fascinating. I am so glad you said that. It's we are in control of these bodies, and the bodies are brilliant, but it's responding off of everything we are programming into it, whatever we're thinking, whatever we're eating, whatever we're doing. And I think that's why, or maybe you could give me your opinion, when people just start out, even their first 30 days, it's life changing for the
Mm,
most part. Okay, nothing's exclusive to everybody, but for the most part.
yeah. Um, look, I think, yeah, of course, you're going to have people that experience some negative effects, especially if they've never done um, keto dieting before or Atkins kind of things before. They're gonna go through a significant change as their microbiome adjusts, as their body adjusts to becoming fat adapted. But within 30 days, you're going to see some major improvements. And I always say to people, like, do it for 90 days. Anyone can do anything for 90 days. If you know there's light at the end of the tunnel, you can do anything for 90 days.
Mhm.
Um, and so, I mean, you could probably even fast for
So
90 days if you know
if
at the end
you
of that
do carnivore
it's
for
going to end
90
at some point.
days,
You're going to feel amazing. And at the end of that 90 days, you're not going to go back to another way of eating because you've never experienced how good this feels ever
Mhm,
in your life.
mhm. Yeah, it's people have asked me, they said, or maybe it's just a fad, maybe it's just popular now, and it's reaching people all over. And and Dave, when you first interviewed me, you said, "How did carnivore find you?" It's almost like was a spiritual experience almost. It wasn't that I was seeking it out. I've never studied it, and it is so far from being a fad. Are you kidding me? It's so life changing
Mm,
from relationships around you, or your partnership. What you could get used to, oh, going to your favorite restaurant and you go and you buy and you shop your favorite foods, and I mean everything changes.
mm. I think like people that call it a fad or a trend or something like that. I think that's that's almost that's a perspective problem. So I might come back to that the perspective thing in a moment, but um fad or trend indicates that it's a transient thing. And nothing could be further from the truth with carnivore because once you're on it, once you've got past the teething problems that you might have, whether it's keto flu or something like that, um, once you're 90 days in, once you're 120 days in, no one's going, "Oh, look at when's this ending?
Mm,
When's this going to end? When can I go back to eating chocolate?" No one's doing that.
mhm,
You know, everyone's like the energy is just perfect. You know, there's no blood sugar spikes throughout the day. No one's looking at the refrigerator like it's a girlfriend that jilted them in high school or something, going, come back to me, come back to me. No one's doing that. You know, it's like everyone's just going about their life focusing on other things. And yeah, so I think the people that call it a fad or whatever, they don't really understand.
mhm. I agree because there are people definitely watching me right now thinking, yeah, she'll be through this one too. Okay. And she'll be
She'll
through that one.
she'll be back.
Oh
She'll be
yeah,
back.
she'll be back. I heard that years ago to, number of churches too, oh, she'll be back, But when you have an enlightening, awakening experience and you feel it on every level, there's so much deep gratitude with this. Okay, I want to talk about your latest and greatest breakthrough of letting go of coffee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
So
want to talk about that because coffee and sugar is big with people, walking this path and they're really struggling with these issues.
yeah. So can I say on coffee that it's not like it's not just me that's experienced this. This is so many people have experienced the same kind of with problem with coffee that I have. They can give up the sugar, they can give up the alcohol, they can give up the bread, they can give up all these things. But they like coffee is this thing, you know?
Hmm.
And I 100% understand that, right?
Hmm.
Um, there's nothing quite like sitting down with a coffee and that smell and all that kind of thing. And but for me personally, one of the reasons that I have been trying for a long time to quit coffee is because I'm an all or nothing person. There's no half measures with me. I'm a I'm a smoker or I'm not a smoker. And by smoker that means pack and a half of cigarettes a day. I'm an alcoholic or I'm not. You know, I'm if I sit down with chocolate, I'm eating the whole bar of chocolate. I'm not just eating one square and going, okay, well, I'll put the rest away until tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's just unheard of.
Hmm.
And it's the same with coffee. Like I can drink a pouch of like a pouch of coffee in one day, like a whole bag of coffee. Like I don't know, well, I'm not sure how many grams or ounces or whatever that would be, but like I can go through a full pack of coffee in a day, filtered coffee in a day. And so I had to give it up. I knew that because it was affecting my sleep. And so I've tried, I've gone off it, I've gone back, I've gone off it. And what I realized recently is when you're giving something up, I've followed the same pattern with everything I've given up. It's been stop, go back to it, stop, go back to it, stop, go back to it. The same thing's happened with coffee. I've finally had this moment where I've gone, I just, okay, I've given up and I just don't want it anymore.
Mm.
That kind of, I talked about it in a video, and that voice in the back of my head that's like always there when you give something up, kind of saying to you, come on, you know you're going to go back to it. You know, it's just a matter of time. You know you want me. You
Mhm.
know, and it's always too much, you know, and I always end up going back. And it's just this time that voice is gone.
Mhm.
And so I'm now, how long's it been now? A week and a half coffee free.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what does it feel like to you? Like how, any changes? Are you sleeping better? And
Sleeping much better. Yeah. I'm sleeping much better. I haven't, I've been sick for the last week as well, which has,
mm,
um, you
hmm
know, affected my sleep. So I haven't appreciated the full benefits of a good night's sleep yet. But um, I have I've seen major improvements. So and just major improvements in being awake during the day.
hmm
So I know my sleep's improving.
wow, that's that's a really big deal. I just do a cup, but to me, a cup could be very similar to 10 cups to another person. And then I heard about putting butter and heavy cream in because now I can't taste, I don't like the taste of coffee now. Like, oh my gosh,
Oh, really?
I never thought I would be, yeah. So now, why am I drinking it like that? I know that's going to be short-lived as well, too. Um, so Dave, I want to talk about the sugar, okay? Because I think a lot of people are so challenged with that. And something that's come up for me from people is about carnivore and still drinking alcohol. That's still sugar, though.
Right.
I don't, I really think if, I'd like to get your opinion of this, but I think it would drastically help with that craving too. If a person would really stick to that, let's say even if you start 7 days, maybe you can go 14 days, you know, and that craving and that desire could lessen more and more. I'm not sure. I just choose to be alcohol free anyways for a lot of years, but that is something coming up, in working with people. Have you run into that as well?
In as far as people drinking alcohol still,
Yes.
or
Yeah. Or do you find that, oh, it's easier for them to stop it once they do the carnivore?
I have heard of some people that are still drinking alcohol, but for the majority of people, I think it's ends up being easier for them to give everything away.
Mm-hmm.
And the important thing to kind of think about when we're talking about alcohol and sugar is they are basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, fructose is basically the same as alcohol. The only difference between fructose and alcohol is 10% of the alcohol goes to your brain, and that's why you get the buzz. But there's a paper out there by Robert Lustig that's called Fructose, It's Alcohol Without the Buzz.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's like, that's the thing. It's exactly the same pathway in your body. Your body treats it, apart from that 10%, your body treats it exactly the same way. So that's why years ago, fatty liver disease was the disease of alcoholics. Now it's the disease of
More from that, right? The alcohol.
from just from alcohol. Now it's the disease of everyone because everyone's consuming so much fructose.
Mm,
That's why kids are getting non-alcohol fatty liver disease now
mm,
because yeah, it's exactly it's the body sees it as exactly the same thing. And so just for me from that perspective, it's better to give up both. but also because of my personality, and I think people with my personality seem to be the types of people that might be, I feel, that might be the type of people that are attracted to carnivore in
Mhm.
the first place, because they tend to be more all or nothing types of people. And eating a carnivore way of eating suits that kind of personality, I think.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's a those are some really good thoughts. I can relate to that totally. How has this affected or has it any of your close relationships? Um, did people adjust to that or that's
I
just
think
one of the things I get a little challenged with yet, but it'll be
Mhm.
short-lived.
I think I'm in a unique position because I live in Japan. Um, because in Japan, as a foreigner, you're always looked at as being crazy, regardless what you do. And so, being crazy because you're only eating meat is no different from any other type of being a foreigner crazy here.
Mm,
And so there's that part of it. And the other thing is in social situations here, if you're at a restaurant or whatever, it's still normal in Japan to just eat meat at a restaurant, you know.
mhm,
So you can go out, you can socialize, and you can just eat meat, and it's totally normal. So that's kind of not much of an issue. And
mhm,
at home, my wife and daughter are not following this way of eating, but you know, they're they're okay with me kind of doing my own thing. So,
mhm.
and also it means my daughter doesn't have to share candy with me. So, there's that too.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's
So she's happy about that.
um what like what do you eat on a daily basis? What do you really like to eat?
My day is usually OMAD, usually one meal a day,
Okay.
and that's usually breakfast.
Mhm.
And it's about a pound or so of ground beef and 6 to 10 eggs scrambled on top of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
Do you choose the type of meat, whether it has antibiotics in it or not, or grass-fed? Like what's your own opinion for yourself with that?
I would prefer to eat, antibiotic free, grass fed, all that kind of thing. But in Japan, you don't have that option very easily.
Hmm.
It's not a case of it just being more expensive or something. The supermarkets just don't stock it.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I just get whatever's available in the supermarket, and there's one choice. There's not like all different types or whatever. So yeah, and the type of ground beef you get here, it's actually it's not really ground beef. It's ground beef and ground pork mixed together. So it's like
Okay.
60/40, 60% beef, 40% pork.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, one of the little areas that, of course, is my background to talk about has to do with the colon and the bowels. So, people say when you go on carnivore, two things you pass less gas, okay, and your bowels move differently. Have you experienced like it's a total different regimen because of eating meat from doing this?
Yeah, it's totally different. So the first thing is gas. I mean, that's non-existent. I mean, it exists, but it's
Yeah.
like hardly ever.
Hmm.
And when, you never have to worry about gas anymore. It's not like, oh, I better be near a bathroom just in case this is
Hmm.
not just gas kind of thing.
Right.
That never happens.
Hmm.
Um, And the other thing is the frequency, which people often mistake for constipation. So, everyone's used to going like maybe once a day or
Yeah.
once every other day or something. And suddenly on carnivore, you're thinking, hang on, I haven't been for the last 5 days. What's going on?
Mhm.
And am I constipated? And it's not constipation, it's just your body is using more of the food that you're ingesting, so there's less waste. And so you might it might be like more like once a week now rather than once a day. And
I think
mm,
that is one of the harder ones for me to wrap my head around yet. And granted, I'm only nine weeks now, or into this, almost 3 months, or yeah, closer to 3 months. That after I have been on a regimen of this is the cycle, digestive cycle, elimination cycle, and then it is not happening that way. But you just explained it because the body is utilizing the way there's less waste.
mm. Yeah, someone I spoke to today gave me an example which was really easy to understand. It's like you eat fruit, for example, or vegetables, and your body will like go around and see if there's any nutrition it can get out of that, and there won't be much because there's a lot of anti-nutrients in the stuff, but it'll get what nutrition it can get out of it, and then it'll say, well, I can't do anything with this fiber, and everything else is just waste as well. So we need to get rid of all that. And so you can understand if you've been eating pineapple and watermelon all day versus eating steak all day, which your body can use, you know, getting close to 100% of that, you can understand why the bowel movements change
It
or
would
the
have to.
frequency changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would have to. So I would think the small and large intestine is just going to go through a lot of changes for a little while
Mm,
with people. The other area I find different that I'd love to hear your thoughts on is hydration.
mm. So
Hydrating
for
the I thought I was hydrating the body before. I don't think I was. I don't think I was nearly as when I'm on carnivore. My body's hydrating differently. What's your take on this?
so I feel like I drink more water now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel better now too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably drinking about a gallon of water a day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've heard different stories about things, and perhaps you need to drink more water because when you're not when you're not eating carbohydrate, your body's not storing the water the same way it would have before. And so naturally you're going to want more water. But I'm not a doctor or anything, so I'm not
Mm-hmm.
100% sure. But those are just kind of the stories I've heard.
It feels like my body's hydrating so much better now.
Mm,
Almost retain, not retain the water in a negative way, but it's hydrating the organs better, and definitely the skin.
mm.
So for people starting out, do you have any specific recommendations?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would say the first thing is you got to assess your personality. Like if you talk to most doctors in our space, they will tell you not to go cold turkey
Okay.
and to transition in. And there's good reasons for that. You can get more sick if you go cold turkey. But I think you also have to look at it from the perspective of your personality. And like, for example, me, I have to jump into everything. I can't just go down slowly. As we've already talked about, I'm an all or nothing person. So,
Mhm.
if that's your kind of personality, then maybe you're going to have to deal with you know, the extra week of keto flu or whatever and just dive in. Um, But there's basically two ways to go in. There's the dive in approach, the cold turkey approach, or there's the go down slowly. Get rid of the pasta and the rice first. Get rid of the fruits next. Get rid of the vegetables next, that kind of thing. Um, but basically, you're going to want to get to the point where you're eating nothing but meat and eggs and dairy if you can tolerate it. But you're going to want to test that. Um, but eating nothing but meat and eggs. And I would say to start off with, what you want to do is
Mm-hmm.
really focus in and focus just doing it a day at a time.
Okay.
And as I describe this, a lot of people have told me it's a little bit like Alcoholics Anonymous. And not that I've been through that program, but um, focus on a day at a time. Don't think into the future and like, how am I going to be able to sustain this just eating meat for 6 months, a year, the rest of my life? Don't think of it like that because when you're getting started, your willpower is going to be super challenged. And the last thing you want to do is give yourself the extra challenge of thinking, how am I going to do this for a long period of time? Just focus on getting to bed on day one without cheating. So
Mm.
focus on just having meat, just having eggs, have your bacon as a snack in the fridge, whatever you need, but just to get through day one without cheating.
Mm.
And what's going to happen is you wake up on day two, and the first thing you'll think when you wake up on day two is, I did it. I got through the first day without cheating. And that's going to build your resolve. And then the second thing you're going to think is, I feel so much better. I slept better. Everything feels better. And, maybe you're going to stand up and you're going to go, oh, that pain's not as bad as it was yesterday. Maybe, maybe not. But you're only one day in. But you're going to get all these kind of things happening to you that reinforce, stay with it. And so now day two is going to be just not much, but just that little bit easier. And now on day two, just focus on getting through day two.
Mm.
Then you wake up day three, and day three is you're feeling better. Oh, I did it again. I got through. That's 2 days now. I got through. You're feeling better. You're feeling more accomplished. Your resolve is that much better. And just keep doing that. Don't think about the future.
Mm.
And then when you're 14 days in, when you're 30 days in, that's when you can look at the future and you can feel like, okay, well, now I'm happy about the future being meat only, because I don't have the arthritis anymore, or I don't have the brain fog anymore, or, I'm not shouting at everyone every more, for the slightest little thing, whatever it happens to be.
So you can definitely tell a difference even in your nervous system or just feeling calmer or more at peace.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, in 24 hours, if nothing else, in 24 hours, you take all the carbs, like every scrap of carb out of your diet, in 24 hours, your sleep is going to get better. And that's going to have a waterfall effect. Like your thinking is going to be better and whatever, just in 24 hours.
Gosh, that is just, I can only vouch for it. In the short time I've been in, I look forward to that even more. What about your brain? What about your mental focus? A lot of people generally feel pretty foggy, okay? And their mental clarity is compromised, or they're losing a little bit of the memory here and there, short term, even younger people. Can you tell a
Mm.
difference even in the brain?
Yeah, memory seems to improve. And going forward when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about my own experience and also
Sure.
experiences that people have interviewed. Um, memory seems to improve. Um, and it's almost like this is the early dementia reversal diet or something like that,
Oh,
you know.
I love
It's
that.
it's you know, and I've spoken to people recently that have improved, like they were starting to get worried, and going on carnivore has turned everything around for them. Um, it improves your memory, your mental clarity, brain fog. If you've never done keto before, you might notice in the first week that, you know, you have kind of a bit of a fuzzy head, headaches, things like that. But that's just you going through keto flu. That's just your body adapting. But um, you will notice improvements. And I think one of the biggest things for me was the ability to kind of step away from a situation and look back more objectively on it.
Mm.
And uh, like to give an example, work situations, you'd be in the office and you would be talking about the best way of doing a project. And, maybe someone's arguing the polar opposite of what you are about how to best do the project. And you're so invested in this and you're getting so emotional about it. And you're so angry and you're so like, I've got to have my idea win this. My way is the best way kind of thing. And you get this kind of mental clarity and objectivity that you can kind of step back now and go, what am I doing? Like in the grand scheme of things, how much does this matter? Like, this is not important at all. Who cares whose idea for the project gets accepted? If mine's accepted, who who's gonna care? Who's gonna remember this in 3 days? And you're able to just step back and go, you know what? It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Mhm. Wow.
And that kind of gives you a lot of calmness that you might not have had before.
Things we used to think were so important really aren't.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
the things we didn't think were that important really are.
yeah,
Having compassion, having kindness, having integrity, authenticity in our relationships, and especially with ourself, that has great value. And I do find that getting stronger and stronger as I do this. There's a level of mental strength and clarity. And did you go through a time where your senses became sharper?
yeah. I mean, I think
Hearing,
I, I,
taste, touch, smell?
I would say definitely smell,
Hmm.
and that's still with me. Like if I walk past a bakery, that doesn't smell like freshly cooked bread anymore. That smells like sugar. If I walk past a takeaway shop, all I can smell is like seed oils, and it smells like walking past a mechanic's workshop now. It doesn't smell like food anymore. So, yeah, smell is definitely heightened.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm amazed. I, it's like I have supersonic hearing now. It's crazy how sharp my hearing is. Taste, like I used to love Starbucks coffee, love it. I, you know, but now, I can't even stand to drink it.
Wow.
I can taste the chemicals, not just that brand, but others, and I think the more uh, walking this path and eating just the meat this way, it's definitely doing something. And I'm going back to this, I know a few times. there's an inner strength of life. Like I I used to think, oh, I don't want to live to be an old age, and maybe want to be done with this planet at a certain time, and you know, let's go on from here. Now, I'm embracing humankind. I'm excited for the next day. I'm excited for what I can create and what I can learn, what I could do next, as I integrate this into my life more, finding those ways. And from what I understand, if we give up something, to me, the real definition is because we give it up because there's something better. So it's not
Mm.
like a loss, Dave. Would you say that?
That's
It's
right.
not like you're giving up. It's people have so many attachments, to whatever it is, but it's not a loss when you get so many benefits from where you're at and what we're doing with this.
Yeah. I think the attachments are why it's often difficult for people to get started. But once they get started, they don't want to go back. They, they, it's not a loss. It's a net gain
Hmm.
because your life just gets better.
Hmm.
Like, I've asked people this on my channel many times. I said, I'll give you $10 million. Will you go back to a regular diet? No.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No one, like, no one has said they would take the money because they know, yeah, it'd be nice to get the money and drive around in this nice new car and, drive around in your Mercedes or whatever and get that nice apartment or whatever. But if I've got to live with the back pain, if I've got to live with the constant brain fog, if I've got to live with the arthritis and the, feeling bloated all the time and the IBS and the this and the that,
Mhm.
well, it's not worth it.
Mhm.
It's just not worth it.
So the other area, a little bit of controversy here, has to do with um, affording to eat the meat.
Mm. Well, it depends where in the world that you live. The prices you know, are, are quite variable. But um, I live in Japan, and Japan is pretty expensive, especially when it comes to meat, because most of it's imported, and the locally produced meat is more expensive than the imported stuff, because it's Wagyu. Um, but I've worked out that I spend less money on food than I did before. And that's because, I'm not eating all the time. I'm not constantly in the convenience store. I'm not constantly thinking, how am I going to make this meal different? What is it that I'm going to eat after this meal? When I go to a restaurant, a steak might be expensive,
Mhm.
but I'm just eating the steak.
Mhm.
I'm not eating the fancy dessert, the fancy appetizer, the fancy this, the fancy that. I'm just having a steak. So for most people, it's either going to work out cheaper
Mhm.
or it's going to end up much the same. You're not going to be spending more money.
I agree. From my experience so far. The other day I was in a local Costco store just buying meat and salmon and stuff like that. And that's all my cart had. No, I mean, it didn't take up a lot of space. And then I'm watching people who have their carts just stacked and full of stuff. And that used to be me, not too long ago. Same thing. And it's, looking at value to value, but I'm also looking at this as quality of life, quality of living. When you actually have had so many positive health results and improvements, it there is not a price you can pay for that.
Right.
I use the saying, your health is your wealth. I mean, there are people who have just lots and lots and lots of money, and no matter what, they cannot heal through what their situation is, their health issues or whatever. And so often I just want to say, well, why don't you just eat a steak? Why don't you just eat a piece of meat for, so long and see what would happen? And it's very hard for people to wrap their brain around that until you're at a point, why not? Why
Mm.
not do it? You know?
Yeah.
But that
It's
quality of life and living, and that's what I see with you.
yeah. It's really the food companies have done a real job on us. Uh, they have, through their marketing messages and through their advertising and their indirect advertising, they've done a really good job of convincing almost 100% of us that it's much better to eat paper that's manufactured in a factory with lots of, you know, lots of preservatives and chemicals to make it taste like food than it is just to eat something natural like a steak. It's yeah, they've done a real good job doing it, but and that's the problem as well, is all these people that are standing there with the the boxes, the colorful boxes in the shopping carts, you know, whether they like the food or not, um, most of them think they're doing the right thing.
Mhm.
Most of them think that they're doing the right thing because the boxes are all labeled cholesterol free and
Gluten free and
extra, yeah, extra fiber and all this kind of stuff. And it's all the things the doctor is telling them they should be doing. You know, don't get your cholesterol up. So of course they see a box that says cholesterol free. They think, okay, well, I'm doing the right thing, you know? And so it also then makes it really hard because you want to go and say, look, you know, I can see you're suffering from the effects of diabetes and stuff like that. You know, can I give you some advice? You really want to go up to people and say this, but you can't because first of all, they're going to think you're a wacko. Like who stops people in the middle of the street and starts giving them nutrition advice except Paul Saladino? But the on the other side of it is you're fighting a losing battle. You may as well stand in the against the wall and smack your head in the corner, like because they've been told they've been educated this way their whole lives.
Mhm. Yeah. It's boy, when you start to connect the dots even further, that's a big part of you just can't go back.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you the truth will set you free. Oh yes, it sure does. And then the more truth you have, the more conscious awareness you have, and it isn't about saving the world to me. If I could teach one and they're open to it, that's great. If not, that's all right. The Hopis, who I was adopted into when I was young, shared with me, work with the living and not the dead, meaning for the people who want it, you share it. For the people who don't, it that's not up to me to judge that whatsoever,
yeah, yeah,
that way. And you have
yeah,
a very welcoming approach to how you communicate with people, and what you do share, and then what people, they want to just share. It's so natural to be around you, and they just want to tell you more and more and more. It's just you've got a real gift with this for sure. How,
cheers.
any closing remarks you want to have, or suggestions, or anything you want to share here?
Look, honestly, um, I think the most important thing is to get started. And
Mm,
even if you're skeptical, just try it. There's nothing to buy. No one's selling you anything.
mhm,
Um, and so just you've got nothing to lose. Just give it a try. Just say to yourself, I'll try for 90 days. And after 90 days, I'll go, yeah, that didn't work. And I'll go back to my regular diet. Because at the end of 90 days, you're not going to go back. But you don't know it yet. But in 90 days, your whole perspective is going to change on things.
mm, mhm, mhm. I know it sure did for me. 30, 60. Now I'm going on 90. And and how would people best reach you? What do you prefer? You know, how do they be in touch with you? I know definitely through your podcast, which you can mention.
Yeah. So yeah, that is the best way to get in contact with me is to just find me on YouTube. The channel name is No Carb Life, and the handle is at zero carb. That's Zero carb. Other than that, I'm on Twitter, and I can't remember the handle now. I'll have to send that to you.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Dave Mack, for joining with me today. I am just so thrilled, and I'm looking forward to getting this out to a lot of people. And I will continue to stay listening to your podcast as well. Thank you for what you contribute to this carnivore journey with just thousands of people. Thank you.
Thank you so